Myra stood in front of the small cracked mirror of her bedroom, pulling at the edges of her old blue dress. It was the only dress she owned that looked even close to formal, though the fabric had faded in places. She sighed. She never imagined herself walking into a rich restaurant, sitting across from a stranger, pretending to be someone else. But tonight wasn't about her choice. Her elder sister, Alina, had made that very clear. "Myra, please, just this once," Alina had begged earlier that evening, sitting at the edge of the bed while painting her nails. "He's some rich man, a CEO or something. I can't go today, I have another plan. But if I don't show up, he'll think I'm rude. You go instead. Just smile, eat, and then leave." Myra had stared at her sister in disbelief. "But Alina, he's expecting you. What if he realizes?" Alina rolled her eyes with a laugh. "He won't. People like him don't pay attention to details anyway. Besides, you and I look alike enough. It's only dinner. You're harmless and quiet, Myra. Just cover for me." Myra wanted to refuse. She wanted to say she couldn't play such a part. But one look at Alina's determined face made her give in. She always did. Alina was bold, beautiful, and used to getting her way, while Myra was soft-spoken and carried the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Now, with her heart pounding, Myra walked toward the restaurant her sister had given her directions to. The building rose tall and elegant, its golden lights glowing through glass windows. She hesitated at the entrance, clutching her old brown bag close. She could almost hear Alina's impatient voice in her head, reminding her not to ruin this. Inside, the air was filled with quiet music and the sound of hushed conversations. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved gracefully between the tables. Myra felt their eyes on her, the way some of them raised their brows at her simple clothes. She lowered her gaze and walked quickly, afraid that she already looked out of place. At the far end of the room, near a wide window, sat a man in a dark suit. His posture was straight, his hands folded neatly on the table, his tie perfectly in place. Even from a distance, Myra felt his presence sharp, controlled, almost intimidating. When their eyes met, Myra nearly stopped walking. His gaze was piercing, the kind that made people look away. But she forced her legs forward until she reached the table. "Alina?" he asked, his voice deep but laced with suspicion. Myra froze. The sound of her sister's name twisted inside her chest. She nodded faintly, forcing a small smile, though her throat felt tight. "Yes," she whispered, sitting down quickly, hoping he wouldn't notice how nervous she was. The man's eyes narrowed slightly, studying her face as if he sensed something was off. But after a moment, he leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I'm Ryan," he said, his voice calm but firm. "CEO of Keston Group. My schedule is not forgiving, so I don't waste time. Tell me, why should I sit here with you tonight?" Myra's breath caught. The way he spoke was not casual, not warm. It was the voice of a man who was used to people proving themselves to him. Her mind went blank. She wasn't Alina. She wasn't supposed to know how to impress a powerful businessman. She wasn't even supposed to be here. Her fingers trembled under the table as she tried to answer. Then, without meaning to, the truth slipped out. I didn't come here to impress you," she said softly, almost too quiet to hear. "I only came because someone asked me to." For a moment, Ryan was silent. His sharp eyes softened slightly, curiosity flickering in them. He wasn't used to such honesty. Most people who sat across from him tried too hard to charm, to flatter, to prove they belonged in his world. But this girl, this quiet, simple girl, was different. Myra looked down at her lap, wishing she could disappear. She was already planning how to leave when suddenly a small voice broke through the tension. "Papa." Myra's eyes shot up in surprise. A little boy, no more than 6, ran toward their table and grabbed Ryan's sleeve. His eyes were big and bright, his hair slightly messy, and his smile was innocent and full of life. "You promised I could come say hello," the child said happily. Myra's heart softened instantly at the sight of the boy. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't known the man she was meeting tonight was a father. Ryan's expression hardened slightly, though he placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder. He glanced at Myra, his eyes thoughtful now. "This," he said slowly, his voice lower than before, "was not supposed to happen. But maybe it's better this way." Myra didn't understand what he meant. All she knew was that this evening was already spiraling into something she never planned for. She wasn't Alina, she wasn't meant to be here, and yet, for some reason, Ryan wasn't letting her go. And sitting there, with his son's curious eyes on her, Myra felt her world begin to change in ways she could not yet imagine. Myra sat frozen, staring at the little boy who clung to Ryan's sleeve. His small hand held tightly onto his father's arm, his curious eyes fixed on her as if trying to figure out who she was. Ryan gently placed his palm on the boy's back. "Ayan, I told you to wait at the other table," he said quietly. His tone wasn't harsh, only steady, like a man used to guiding instead of scolding. "But Papa," the child replied, pouting slightly, "you said I could say hello. You promised." Myra's lips curved into a soft smile without meaning to. There was something pure in the boy's voice, something that reminded her of the children in her neighborhood who often came to her for help with homework. She loved children. Their innocence always warmed her heart. Ryan noticed her small smile and his eyes lingered on her face. Something about it was different, gentle, unguarded, unlike the polished charm he often saw on women who sat across from him. "This is my son, Ayan," Ryan said at last, his deep voice pulling Myra out of her thoughts. Myra looked at the boy and gave a shy nod. "Hello, Ayan," she said softly. The child's eyes lit up. "Hi. Are you Papa's friend?" Myra opened her mouth, uncertain what to say. She wasn't supposed to be anyone's friend tonight. She was only a replacement, someone filling in for a sister who didn't want to be here. But looking into the child's bright eyes, she couldn't bring herself to lie or to push him away. "I suppose I am," she answered gently. Ayan grinned. "Good. Papa doesn't have many friends. He only works, works, works." He leaned closer and whispered loudly, "He even forgets to smile sometimes." Myra chuckled quietly, while Ryan raised an eyebrow at his son's words. "That's enough, Ayan. Go back to your seat." "But can't I sit here too?" the boy pleaded. "Please." Before Ryan could respond, Myra spoke softly. "It's fine, he can sit. If you don't mind." Ryan looked at her for a long moment, studying the sincerity in her expression. Most people would avoid the complication of a child joining dinner, but she welcomed it. Finally, he gave a small nod. "Very well." Ayan climbed onto the chair beside Myra, swinging his legs happily. The waiter arrived with menus, and Myra felt embarrassed as she glanced at the long list of dishes she didn't recognize. The prices made her throat tighten. She couldn't even afford a drink here, let alone a meal. Ryan noticed the hesitation in her eyes. Without asking, he ordered for all 3 of them, his voice calm and confident as if he had done this 1,000 times before. When the waiter left, silence settled again. Ayan began telling Myra about his favorite toy car and how he wanted to be a racer one day. Myra listened attentively, her face soft with genuine interest. Every now and then she laughed quietly at his innocent stories, and Ryan found himself watching her. There was something unusual about this girl. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't look around to admire the luxury of the restaurant or comment on his status. She simply focused on the child, giving him all her attention. "You're different," Ryan said suddenly, breaking the quiet. Myra turned to him, startled. "Different?" "Yes," he said simply. "Most people I meet spend half their time trying to tell me what I want to hear. You don't." "Why?" Myra lowered her eyes, her fingers twisting together in her lap. She wanted to say the truth, that she wasn't supposed to be here, that she wasn't Alina, that she had no reason to impress him. But fear kept her quiet. She didn't want to ruin things for her sister. I don't know how to be anyone else," she said softly instead. Her answer surprised him. He leaned back, his gaze thoughtful. For a man who spent his life around people who wore masks, her honesty was unusual, almost refreshing. Their food arrived, and Ayan insisted Myra try everything. He offered her a spoonful of rice, then giggled when she smiled at his excitement. She hadn't felt so at ease in a long time. The warmth of the boy's presence, the unexpected gentleness in Ryan's occasional glances, it all felt strangely comforting, even though she knew she didn't belong here. When the meal ended, Myra reached for her small bag, but Ryan stopped her with a firm shake of his head. "I'll take care of it." She hesitated. I can pay for my part." His brows lifted slightly. "Can you?" The question wasn't cruel, just direct. Myra froze, her cheeks burning with shame. He had seen through her. The truth was she couldn't even pay for a single plate here. No," she admitted softly. Instead of mocking her, Ryan's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Then don't say what you can't do," he replied quietly. For a moment, Myra wanted to leave immediately, to escape the mix of embarrassment and emotion swirling in her chest. She pushed back her chair, but before she could rise, Ayan caught her hand. "Don't go yet," he said, his voice full of hope. "Please. Can we have ice cream?" Ryan looked at his son, then back at Myra. "Stay," he said firmly, though not unkindly. "The night isn't over." Myra sat back slowly, her heart beating fast. She had been sent here as a replacement, just for one dinner. But somehow, this dinner had turned into something else, something she didn't understand yet. And as Ayan squeezed her hand happily, Myra realized with unease that leaving might not be as simple as she thought. The soft clinking of spoons against glass echoed in the restaurant as Ayan happily enjoyed his ice cream. Myra sat beside him, still unsure why she hadn't left. She had told herself over and over that she was only here as a favor to Alina. Yet now, with Ayan's tiny hand holding hers and Ryan's steady gaze watching her, she felt trapped between leaving and staying. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his sharp features calm but unreadable. He had spent years building walls around his heart, walls made of discipline, rules, and silence. But the way his son's laughter mixed with this girl's soft responses stirred something inside him, something he thought he had buried long ago. "You are good with him," Ryan said suddenly, his deep voice breaking Myra's thoughts. She looked up, startled. "Me?" "Yes." His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her. "Children don't warm up to strangers so easily. Yet Ayan doesn't stop talking to you. Why?" Myra's cheeks warmed. "I don't know. Maybe, because I like children. They are simple, honest. They don't judge." Ayan giggled and offered Myra another spoonful of his ice cream. She laughed softly and shook her head, but he insisted until she tasted it. Ryan watched the scene quietly, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt the strange pull of comfort in another person's presence. And it unsettled him. When the evening finally drew to an end, Ryan stood, adjusting his suit. "I'll drive you home," he said firmly. Myra shook her head quickly. "No, it's fine. I can go by myself." His gaze sharpened. "It's late. I won't allow it." The authority in his tone made her breath catch. She wanted to refuse, to escape before the lie grew heavier, but she couldn't ignore the protective edge in his words. It wasn't arrogance, it was responsibility. He didn't sound like a man showing off power. He sounded like a father, cautious for the sake of his son and the woman who had unexpectedly shared their evening. Reluctantly, Myra followed him and Ayan to the black car waiting outside. The driver opened the door, and Ayan climbed in first, tugging Myra's hand until she sat beside him. Ryan entered last, his presence filling the space. The city lights flickered past the window as silence filled the car. Myra sat stiffly, her hands clenched in her lap. She kept telling herself, I must leave this behind. He cannot know the truth. He must not know I'm not Alina. Yet her heart betrayed her, stealing glances at Ryan as the passing streetlights revealed his profile, strong, calm, yet carrying a weight she could not name. Ayan broke the silence. Papa, can she come again? Myra's heart skipped a beat. She quickly looked away, pretending not to hear. Ryan glanced at his son, then at her. His expression gave nothing away. We'll see, he said calmly. When the car finally stopped near Myra's small neighborhood, she hurried to open the door. Thank you, for the dinner, she whispered, her voice low. But as she stepped out, Ryan's voice followed her. Myra. Her heart froze. He had spoken her real name. Slowly, she turned back, her breath shallow. What did you say? His eyes locked onto hers, sharp and steady. Myra. That's your name, isn't it? She swallowed hard, her chest tightening. How had he known? Had she slipped up? She stammered. Before she could explain, Ayan leaned forward from the back seat and waved cheerfully. Good night, Myra. The sound of her name on the boy's innocent lips silenced her panic. Ryan said nothing more, only gave her one last unreadable look before the car door closed and they drove away. That night, Myra lay awake in her small room, staring at the ceiling. Her mind spun with fear and confusion. Did he know the truth? Did Alina tell him? Or was it simply a guess? Her heart whispered another truth she didn't want to admit. She was worried not because she had lied, but because a part of her didn't want him to think badly of her. She didn't understand why his opinion mattered, why his gaze had unsettled her so deeply. The next morning, Alina stormed into the room, her eyes flashing. So? How was it? Did he like me? Myra looked up, startled. You? But I wasn't even myself last night. Alina frowned impatiently. Don't be silly. He thinks you were me, and that's what matters. He's rich, Myra. Powerful. This could change everything for me. What did he say about me? Myra hesitated, her heart heavy. He didn't talk about you much. He talked more to Ayan. His son. Alina's eyes widened. Son? He has a child. Yes, Myra whispered. For the first time, Alina looked uncertain. She paced the room, then shook her head. It doesn't matter. Money is money. I'll handle it. Next time, I'll go myself. But Myra's chest tightened painfully. The thought of Alina sitting across from Ryan, smiling her practiced smile, while Ayan reached out with his innocent trust, it hurt in a way she couldn't explain. Because deep down, she knew the bond that had begun to form last night wasn't meant for her sister. It had been hers. And even though she had no right to it, the memory of Ayan's small hand in hers and Ryan's steady gaze stayed with her, refusing to fade. Myra tried to distract herself the next morning with small chores around the house. She swept the floor, washed the dishes, and folded the laundry, but her thoughts kept drifting back to the black car, the child's laughter, and Ryan's sharp gaze when he called her by name. Had he truly recognized her? Or was it just Ayan who had spoken her name without thinking? The question kept circling in her mind like a restless bird. She didn't realize that the answer would come much sooner than she expected. By afternoon, a sleek black car pulled up near her small street. The neighbors peeked through their windows, whispering among themselves. Myra froze at the sight, her broom falling from her hands. Only one man she knew carried such an air of authority with him. Ryan stepped out, his tall frame in another perfectly tailored suit. His presence made the simple neighborhood feel too small, too ordinary. Children playing outside stopped and stared. Women carrying baskets paused in surprise. Myra's heart pounded. She wanted to run inside and lock the door, but her feet felt rooted to the ground. He walked straight toward her, his eyes steady, unreadable as always. Beside him walked little Ayan, holding a toy car in one hand and smiling brightly when he spotted Myra. "Myra," the boy called happily, rushing to her and hugging her waist. "I told Papa we should visit you." Myra's arms automatically went around him, her fear softening for a moment as she looked down at his innocent face. "Ayan, you came." "Yes. I wanted to see you again." Papa said yes. Her eyes lifted slowly to Ryan. His gaze met hers, calm but serious. He didn't speak until he was close enough that only she could hear. "You lied to me," he said quietly. Her chest tightened. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The weight of his voice, low but firm, pressed on her heart. She stammered, but before she could explain, Alina appeared from inside the house. "Ryan," she said in her most charming tone, her eyes lighting up as if she had been waiting for this moment all her life. She brushed past Myra, standing tall, her dress neat and her smile confident. "I didn't expect you here." Ryan's eyes moved to Alina for a brief moment, then back to Myra. His silence spoke louder than words. Alina, however, didn't notice. She extended her hand gracefully. "I'm Alina," she said smoothly. "I believe we met already." Myra's breath caught. She wanted the ground to swallow her. Ryan didn't take Alina's hand. Instead, he spoke in that same calm but cutting voice. "No. We haven't met before." Alina blinked, confused. "What?" "But Myra, I know exactly who Myra is," Ryan interrupted, his eyes fixed on the quiet girl who stood frozen beside his son. "And I know she wasn't honest with me that night. But I also know she wasn't playing games. She didn't come to impress me. She came because she had no choice." Myra's lips parted in shock. She wanted to protest, to explain that she had only gone because her sister asked her, but her throat felt tight. Alina's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained it. "Well, you know now. So let's start fresh, shall we? I am the one you were meant to meet." Ryan's gaze didn't waver from Myra. "Perhaps. But the one who sat with me, the one who spoke to my son, the one who didn't try to be anyone else, that was Myra." Alina's expression stiffened. She turned to her sister, her voice sharp but quiet. "What did you do?" "I didn't mean for it to be this way," Myra whispered, her eyes lowering in shame. Ryan finally looked at Alina, his voice calm but cold. "If you think I am a prize to be won, then you misunderstand me. I do not care for empty charm. My time is precious, and I don't waste it." The silence that followed was heavy. Alina's face flushed with frustration, but she forced a laugh. "Well, maybe you prefer simple. That's fine. But Myra can't give you what I can." Ryan didn't answer her. Instead, Ayan tugged Myra's hand. "Papa, can she come with us? I want her to play with me." The child's innocent request broke the tension in a way neither adult expected. Myra looked down at him, her heart aching with tenderness. I don't think I should," she began, but Ayan cut her off. "Please, Myra. Just once. Ryan's eyes softened as he looked at his son. Then, with a slow nod, he turned to Myra. Come with us. Myra's heart pounded. She looked back at Alina, who was glaring at her, and then at Ryan, who waited patiently. Her whole world felt like it was shifting beneath her feet. She shouldn't go. She knew she shouldn't. But when Ayan smiled up at her with hope in his eyes, her resolve crumbled. And so, against every warning in her mind, Myra stepped forward into a car, into a life, and into a bond she hadn't asked for but couldn't seem to resist. The car moved smoothly through the busy streets, carrying Myra into a world she had never known. She sat quietly beside Ayan, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Ryan sat across from her, his presence filling the space with calm authority. Myra kept her eyes on the window, watching buildings blur past. She wanted to ask why she was here, why he had insisted she join them, but fear kept her silent. She wasn't part of their lives. She didn't belong in their world. Yet Ayan didn't let her drift away. He leaned against her arm, showing her his toy car. Look, Myra. This one is my favorite. Papa bought it for me when I was sick. Isn't it fast? Myra smiled gently, her voice soft. It looks very fast. I think it must be the best car you have. The boy beamed, his joy simple and pure. Ryan observed quietly, noticing how naturally she spoke to his son, how she never forced a smile, never pretended. It was as if kindness came easily to her. The car finally stopped in front of a tall glass building. Myra looked up, her breath catching at the sight. It was Ryan's company headquarters, Keston Group. Employees in formal clothes moved in and out, bowing respectfully as Ryan stepped out. Come, he said simply. Myra hesitated, but Ayan tugged her hand, pulling her along. Don't worry, Myra. It's fun inside. She followed, her heart pounding as they entered the wide marble lobby. The air smelled of polished wood and fresh flowers. Everyone seemed to pause when they saw Ryan walk in, their gazes filled with respect and curiosity when they noticed Myra beside him. Whispers floated around her. She lowered her head, wishing she could disappear. Ryan ignored them all. He walked with quiet confidence, leading them to the elevator. Myra felt small beside him, like a shadow that didn't belong in this bright, powerful place. Inside his office, Ayan ran to the large window, pressing his face against the glass. Look, Myra. You can see the whole city from here. She walked slowly toward him, her eyes widening at the view. The streets looked tiny, the cars like little toys. For a moment, she forgot her fear, her lips parting in wonder. Ryan watched her from behind his desk. Her awe was genuine, unlike the polished compliments he often heard. Something in her unguarded expression pulled at him again, though he tried to ignore it. Sit, he said, motioning toward the chair across from him. Myra obeyed, sitting nervously. Her hands gripped the edge of the seat, her heart thudding. You lied to me, Ryan said at last, his voice calm but firm. Her eyes dropped. I'm sorry. Why? Myra swallowed hard. Because my sister asked me to. She didn't want to come, and she thought you wouldn't notice if I went instead. And yet I did notice, he replied evenly. Her cheeks warmed with shame. She nodded. Yes. I shouldn't have agreed. I didn't want to upset her. Silence filled the room. Ayan's laughter as he played with his toy was the only sound. Finally, Ryan leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on her. You are honest now, he said. That is enough for me. Myra blinked in surprise. You're not angry. I don't waste anger on truth, he replied. Her heart eased a little, though confusion still lingered. Why was he giving her kindness when she had deceived him, even unwillingly? The day stretched on longer than she expected. Ayan refused to let her leave. He dragged her to the small playroom inside the office, showing her his puzzles, his books, his drawings. Myra sat on the carpet with him, laughing softly as he explained each picture. Ryan stood at the door, watching them quietly. His son rarely opened up so quickly to strangers, but with Myra, it was different. Ayan's laughter was brighter, his smile wider. And Myra herself seemed to bloom in the child's presence, her quiet nature turning into warmth. When evening came, Ryan finally spoke. "I'll take you home now." Myra shook her head quickly. "No, I can go by myself. I don't want to trouble you again." "It is not trouble," he said firmly. "It is my decision." Something in his tone silenced her. She followed him and Ayan back to the car. The ride home was quiet, but her heart was louder than ever. She kept telling herself not to get attached, not to feel anything. But Ayan's little hand still held hers, and Ryan's gaze still lingered on her reflection in the window. When they reached her small house, Myra stepped out quickly, her voice trembling. "Thank you. For today." Ryan only nodded, but his eyes held something unreadable, something that made her chest tighten. That night, as Myra lay on her bed, she whispered to herself, "I shouldn't see them again. I must not." But deep down, she knew it was already too late. A bond had formed between her and the little boy, between her and the man who carried silence in his eyes. And no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pretend it didn't matter. The following days felt heavier for Myra. She tried to return to her simple routine, but her heart was restless. Every corner of her house reminded her of Ayan's laughter, and every quiet moment pulled her thoughts back to Ryan's steady gaze. She told herself it was wrong to feel this way, wrong because the meeting was never meant for her, wrong because Alina was the one who wanted his attention. But no matter how hard she tried, the bond she had formed in those hours could not be erased. Alina noticed her distraction one evening. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her earrings, her tone sharp. "What's wrong with you these days? You look like you're carrying a secret." Myra's hand stilled over the basket of laundry she was folding. "Nothing. I'm just tired." Alina turned and narrowed her eyes. "Don't lie to me. Did you say something foolish to him? Did you ruin my chance?" Myra's chest tightened. "No. I didn't." He already knew. He knew it was me, not you. Alina's face froze. "What?" "He found out," Myra whispered. "I told him the truth." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Then Alina's expression hardened. "Do you realize what you've done? Do you know how rare a man like him is? Rich, powerful, respected. And you threw it all away." Myra's voice shook. "It wasn't mine to keep. You asked me to pretend, and I did. But lies never last, Alina. He deserves honesty." Alina scoffed. "Honesty doesn't pay bills. Honesty doesn't change our lives. Do you think kindness alone will keep food on this table? You're too naive, Myra." Her words stung, but Myra stayed silent. She had no answer. She only knew that whatever Alina wanted from Ryan, it wasn't what she herself had felt when Ayan smiled at her or when Ryan's eyes softened for just a moment. The next day, Myra thought she would not see them again. But as she walked back from the market with a small bag of vegetables, she saw a familiar car waiting near her street. Her heart skipped. The driver stepped out and opened the door, and there he was, Ryan, with his son sitting happily inside. "Myra." Ayan waved excitedly. "Come with us. Please." Myra froze, glancing around as neighbors peeked from their windows again, whispering. Heat rushed to her cheeks. I can't," she said softly. Ryan stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Get in." Ayan won't leave until you do. Her eyes flickered to the boy's hopeful face. She sighed, then slowly climbed into the car. Ayan clapped his hands in delight, leaning against her as if she belonged there. This time, Ryan didn't take them to his office. Instead, the car drove toward a quiet park at the edge of the city. The late afternoon sun painted the sky gold as children ran across the grass. Myra sat with Ayan on a bench while he played with his toy cars, and for the first time, she felt a strange sense of peace. Ryan sat beside her, silent at first. Then he said, "You don't belong in my world." Her heart sank. She lowered her gaze. "I know. But," he continued, his tone softer, "Ayan has chosen you. He doesn't smile this way with anyone else." Myra's chest tightened. "He's just a child. Children, they get attached quickly." "Not my son," Ryan replied. "He has learned to be cautious. Too cautious. Yet with you, he is free." The weight of his words made Myra's eyes sting. She wanted to say something, but her throat closed. Ryan looked at her then, his expression unreadable. "Tell me, Myra. Why did you come that first night, knowing you were not the one meant to be there?" Her hands twisted in her lap. "Because my sister asked me to. She said it was just dinner. She said it didn't matter. And I always do what she asks." "You live in her shadow," Ryan said, not as a question but as a truth. Myra's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. "I've always been the quiet one. The one who doesn't shine. Alina, she's different. She's bold, beautiful. She gets what she wants." Ryan was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly. "Boldness can open doors. But it is honesty that keeps them open." Myra turned to him, her eyes wide at his words. No one had ever valued her honesty before. No one had ever told her it mattered. Before she could answer, Ayan ran back and climbed into her lap, hugging her tightly. "Myra, don't go away again. Promise." Her heart broke at the innocence in his voice. She held him close, whispering, "I'll try." Ryan watched them, his guarded heart shifting once more. For years, he had lived only for his company and his son. He had told himself he needed no one else. But seeing Myra there, holding Ayan with such tenderness, he realized he was standing at the edge of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. As the sun dipped lower, Myra knew one thing for certain: her life was no longer her own. She had stepped into their world by accident, but her heart was slowly binding itself to theirs. And though fear whispered that she should run, a stronger voice inside told her she was already too deep to turn away. The evening after the park, Myra returned home with a heart heavier than ever. Ayan's little arms had clung to her as if he feared she would vanish, and Ryan's words lingered in her mind: "Honesty keeps doors open." But as soon as she stepped into the small living room, Alina was waiting. Her sister's eyes were sharp, her smile thin. "So," she said, arms crossed, "you've been meeting him again?" Myra froze, clutching her scarf. "Alina. I didn't plan it. He came. He brought Ayan. I couldn't refuse the boy." Alina's laugh was bitter. "The boy? Myra, do you hear yourself? Do you realize what this means? If he chooses you, everything I've worked for is gone. Do you want to ruin my future?" Myra's chest ached. She wanted to scream that it had never been her plan, that she had never asked for Ryan's attention. But her voice came out soft, trembling. "I never wanted this, Alina. But Ryan, he doesn't want lies. He sees through them. He sees me, not you." The words slipped out before she could stop them. And in that moment, Alina's eyes filled with something dangerous: not just anger, but fear of losing control. "Stay away from him," Alina said coldly. "I mean it. If you don't, You'll regret it? Myra lowered her gaze, saying nothing. She had spent her whole life stepping back, letting Alina take the light. But something inside her had changed. She could not erase Ayan's laughter or the way Ryan's guarded voice softened when he spoke to her. For the first time, she didn't feel invisible. The next morning, a message arrived. Myra stared at her old phone as Ryan's name appeared on the screen. Her fingers shook as she opened it. Come to the cafe near the office. We need to talk. Her heart raced. Should she go? Or should she obey Alina's warning and hide? For a long while she sat in silence, until she remembered Ayan's little voice saying, "Promise you won't go away." That was enough. When she arrived, Ryan was already waiting. He stood near the window, his suit immaculate as always, but his expression seemed heavier than usual. "Myra," he said, pulling out a chair for her. She sat nervously, her hands in her lap. "Why did you call me?" "Because I'm tired of silence," Ryan replied. "I need to know the truth. Not about the dinner, I already know that. I want to know about you." "What do you want, Myra?" The question stunned her. No one had ever asked her what she wanted. Not her family, not even Alina. She had always been the one to bend, to adjust, to sacrifice. Her eyes blurred with unshed tears. I don't know. All my life, I've done what others asked. I never chose for myself." Ryan's gaze softened. "Then start now. Choose. If you want to walk away, I won't stop you. But if you stay," his voice lowered, almost hesitant. "If you stay, you will not just be in my son's life. You will be in mine." Myra's breath caught. The world outside the cafe window blurred as her heart thudded in her chest. "Why me? You could have anyone. Someone stronger, more confident. Not someone like me." Ryan shook his head. "Confidence can be learned. But kindness, honesty, those cannot be taught. You gave my son back his laughter, Myra. And you gave me something I thought I had lost, peace." Her tears slipped free then, rolling silently down her cheeks. She had never been told she was enough. Never been valued for the quiet parts of her soul. "I'm afraid," she whispered. "Afraid that I will fail. Afraid that Alina will hate me more." Ryan reached across the table, his hand resting lightly over hers. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It's choosing despite it. And as for your sister, this is not her choice. It's yours." Myra looked at his hand, then at his eyes. She saw no lies there, only steady truth. And slowly, she nodded. That evening, when Myra returned home, Alina confronted her again. But this time, Myra didn't bow her head. "Alina," she said firmly, "I have lived in your shadow for too long. I have respected your dreams, your choices. But this is not yours to control. For once, I'm choosing for myself." Alina's mouth opened in shock. She had never seen her sister so steady, so sure. But before she could reply, Myra turned and walked away, her steps light though her eyes burned with tears. Days later, Myra stood once more outside Ryan's office, but she wasn't trembling this time. Ayan ran to her, holding her hand as though it belonged there forever. Ryan watched them with quiet pride, and when Myra looked up at him, their eyes met with unspoken understanding. She was no longer the poor girl sent by mistake. She was no longer just Alina's shadow. She was Myra, the woman who had chosen, at last, to follow her own heart. And as Ryan's hand reached for hers, with Ayan's laughter filling the room, Myra knew that even the most unexpected beginning could lead to a home she never dreamed she would find.